Alright guys, back out here working on the LS Swap B6200 build. Now last episode we handled the majority of the fuel system for this thing. I'll put a link to that if you want to go back and watch that. For this episode, I went through and I looked at pretty much everything on this truck. I went inside the cab, I went underneath it, I went in the engine bay, and I came up with a list of things that I would need to buy in order to make progress. And it's not just big ticket items. This is all small things. So this was all of the loose ends that needed to be cleaned up before we could move to really the next phase of the build. So all in all, the things that I found that we needed are, give me one sec. We need the starter. We need to tighten all the fuel lines. We need to tighten the fuel rail, and I need hardware for that. Got to install new spark plugs. Got to get the oil pan drain bolt because I lost it, as well as filter and oil. We've got to get the trans and engine mounts tightened down. Right now they're just fit in, so they're not tight. I've got to install the TPS, the IAC, and the map sensor. There's a vacuum leak, quote unquote. There's a temp sensor that goes in the back of the block on the Redux Racing manifold, so I've got to plug that. I've got to order some V-bands for the exhaust. I need to figure out the steering pump fittings and lines and how that's going to be routed. We need to get some brake fluid so we can bleed the brakes. We've got to get an oil dipstick as well as the tube itself. Got to get one last bolt in the water pump. We've got to get the sensor in the back of the valley cover installed. We've got to get a coolant temp sensor. Got to get bell housing winglets, little things that go between. Yeah, I don't know what to call them. Either way, got to get those bell housing things. We've got to get a ground cable for the head. We've got to get the correct size serpentine belt. We've got to fix the valve covers. And we've got to get a new radiator because I bent the last one, and we got to figure out a shroud design. Now, that's going to be a pretty decent amount of money, even though it's a bunch of random parts. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to go to the junkyard with Chris and see if we can maybe get a power steering pump, maybe get an alternator. We need a small case alternator. We have the large case 145 amp alternator off the Escalade, and that doesn't fit where we need it to fit. So we're going to go to pick apart and see if we can get some of these parts first before we place the rest of the orders. That way everything hopefully arrives on time and we can save some money. All right, we have walked through the yard here at Horsehead's Pick Apart, aka Felix. You pull it now? I don't know. Phoenix. The sign, Phoenix?
Phoenix, yeah.
Phoenix, Felix?
No, yeah.
I think it's Felix.
No, it's Phoenix for sure.
Well, we're going to call it Horsehead's Pick Apart because the sign on the road still says Horsehead's Pick Apart.
Okay.
We finally found our small case alternator. Decent looking power steering pump. Both of them are still spinning, so try to pull this bracket off.
We went through like 15 other trucks and they're all either missing or crusty.
Yep.
Most of them were missing. I think the 3 that we saw were all crusty.
Piers alternators are a common thing to take here. The actual, like, there might be one from the side. I can't remember, but there's this, like, there's pump lines that are hooked up.
Yeah, the pump lines are going to be annoying.
We should be able to, like, pull it out. So this was definitely a smaller alternator here. We'll set a picture up here too, but definitely smaller. I think we have a good chance of this one fitting. So we're just gonna try that now. Just fit in there nice and beautiful. Terminal's right there. That could be interesting. Might not quite fit, we'll see. This sucker just has to go on right there. Do that. Pulled the pulley off this sucker. So now we can go ahead and get the power steering pump off the bracket. So I went ahead and got the power steering pump kind of sitting in here on the bracket. Now, this is weird because I think this is an OEM pump, and currently the bracket, this bracket right here hits kind of in this location on like an edge of the pump, and it doesn't let it go in. Come in here, see how that hole is misaligned? It's hitting this ledge right there, which is kind of weird because everything else would seem like it would fit, but that one is a problem. And then even if it can get close enough, it almost seems like it's going to be a problem at the other corner of the ledge. So I'm gonna have to do something to get rid of these ledges here. All right, I hit a couple edges there. We'll do a little Harbor Freight special. The first time ever using that thing. You can see now we got our holes lined up on all 4, so we should be good to mount this. I also have to mount this on here first before I can press the pulley back on, because we don't have enough space up front here to do that. Kid you not, I had to retap all these, run all the threads. But now they're all working, so I'm gonna get this locked down so it'll hold my little spacers up here. Back these back out so I can get the pump installed, and then we'll go from there. Now the AC compressor is going to be on this side of the motor, and so these lines that we have, the stock lines, are kind of pointless at this point. I already broke these loose, so I'm going to go ahead and try to pull them out here. I was down here trying to see what parts I still need to order as far as getting the engine running and whatnot. And my God, dude, look at this. Nothing left in them. And then I started looking around, and it's like every single joint on this thing is toasted. So everything is gonna need replaced. Okay, a ton of our parts finally showed up. This is all the miscellaneous parts off the board over there. So nothing too spectacular. It's just getting everything on the motor, getting everything hooked to the truck so I can finally get to like the finishing steps. So it's time to just start checking these things off the list. That is how a reverse riv nut is going to work. Be able to thread in a bolt from the outside. Then the fan will slip down over these. I mean, look how perfect this is. I'm going to show the back side. Look at that. Then we can go ahead and get this mounted to the new radiator. And we got our riv nuts in here. Kind of glad I stuck with it there because I was able to get most of the stuff knocked out at this point. The only thing I'm still missing, I got to get some O-rings for the injectors. I couldn't find anything for that. I've tightened everything but the fuel lines on top of the tank, as well as one of the fuel lines on the actual fuel filter pressure regulators. And then we've got the steering pump fittings, which hopefully can figure out what the GM size is and get an order in for those. Not exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be saying we were done with the small parts, but this is where we got. Now we did get our new O-rings and our new clips for the fuel injectors. However, I did not get the pump fittings. So we're gonna focus on getting these all cleaned up. We'll pop the clips off, get the injectors out of the fuel rail, get the old O-rings off of them, and put everything back together. And then we can come back over here and put it back on the motor. That's what I have, don't judge me. Now I'm just gonna pull all the clips off these suckers and then get them torn down. So now what I'm gonna do, pull these off and hopefully clean them up. In fact, it looks like we got a problem here. We're missing the little end like nozzle on this one. So that could be an issue. I found the other cap in the old intake manifold. Now we gotta get the caps off these things, and I found the other cap. So I'm gonna take a pair of needle nose and just kind of spin this back and forth to work the cap off. There's actually quite a bit in here. There it is. 8 cleaned up injectors. Can't make this up, but you see this here, it says high sport fuel injector, metal retaining clip EV1. Okay, 8 pieces. You see that? It's not 8 pieces. I gotta order freaking new fuel injector clips, so I can't clip these on at the moment. I don't know, maybe I'll just tighten the rail down. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, we've done the most that we can with parts that we have. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this one. I'm going to go ahead and get the old harness out in the next episode so we can work on getting the Terminator installed. We have pretty much 99% of the small stuff hit now. Obviously, other stuff's going to come out of the woodwork, and there's a few things like the fuel rail clips, the injector clips there, that we're waiting for. But otherwise, we pretty much knocked out the entire loose ends list. This pretty much leaves us with 2 things to complete, which is going to be the exhaust, which is not a huge deal, and installing the Terminator with the wiring harness. But otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. My name's Oren, and I'll catch you in the next one.